I agree. Putin is bad and Assad is bad. That's what she's doing. Okay. Well, the absolute dumbest, most brain-poisoned internet freaks you've ever seen in your life come out of the woodworks here, and they are outraged about Jill Stein's comments. So who do we have? Jackson Hinkle says, you. Only a lying Zionist piece of shit would put Presidents Putin and Assad in the same sentence as Netanyahu. Wow. They are still going to call you a Russian puppet, even if you repeat their lies about Putin, Jill. Lies about Putin. So it's a lie to say Putin's a war criminal? It's a lie to say Putin's a war criminal. Even though he has bombed civilian areas, he has killed women and children, innocent men. He did wage an offensive invasion against Ukraine. All right, more. I think you lost a good part of your base on this one, unforced terror. Well, good for Jill then, because these people are the problem. This is one of many reasons why the left is not viewed as serious.
Paul, everybody, Gavin and I, we've been beating the drum, right? About how if the left wants to succeed, we have to change, right? We cannot be the mean kids on the block. We can't be the ridiculous, like
we can be the mean.
Well, we can. Well, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about the people who want to be serious. It's our job to be mean so that you guys become nice. You know, it's a bit of a complicated deal here, but don't worry, it'll all work itself out. What I'm saying is this. Right? You can't be running around screaming, calling the American people genocide lovers. You can't be running around telling them how much their country sucks. Okay? You have to be winning them over. You have to be reaching people. And you know what is a good place to start? Not talking about how much you love other dictators around the world. It's an immediate disqualifier for anybody who isn't already with their head so far up their ass. You have to really shout if you want to reach them. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? We have been talking about how Jill Stein cucked herself to this like weird pro-Putin, pro-Assad, independent media faction that's about yay big on the internet. And she kind of tried to court them because they were the only people that were giving her any serious, attention. They were the only people that were interested in validating her campaign, entertaining it at all. And so that led her really astray, everyone. That led her down a dark path. And as a result, she had to come out and clarify some things. She was like, hey, guys, I actually am a sane person. I'm a good person. I have love in my heart for the world. I do think that Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad, as well as, many leaders of the United States military-industrial complex are war criminals. Perfectly reasonable thing to say. She's still, really trying to pander to that, gray zone left, the MAGA left, as I like to call them. But Kyle has picked up the mantle. He's picked up the crusade. He has joined our cause in rooting these out from the left and letting everybody know that the progressive movement is a serious movement. And these guys, they just aren't a part of it.
Yep. And honestly, if the Green Party, any third party movement, let's be honest, what do they need most? They need to be able to appeal to normies. Like, I know that no one wants to hear that. I know that that's like the worst thing ever if you're someone that's part of that faction. But guess what? To succeed in politics, you have to get the votes of people who don't already agree with you. And if you want to position yourself as an anti-war candidate, if you want to posture as the number one anti-war candidate, it's not a good look. It seems inconsistent in the eyes of your average person when you cheerlead for, I don't know, the government of Russia, when you defend people like Vladimir Putin. And that's exactly the position that a lot of Jill Stein supporters are in. I think you're right, Zach, that Jill Stein to some extent was audience captured by these people, starting to push back a little bit. I'm interested to see in the future if she continues to double down or if she kind of cowers again to this very loudmouth faction of people, very, aggressive reply guy faction on Twitter. If you piss them off, you're going to see like 20 of these motherfuckers in your replies, as we're about to see.
I agree. Putin is bad and Assad is bad. That's what she's doing. Okay. Well, the absolute dumbest, most brain-poisoned internet freaks you've ever seen in your life come out of the woodworks here, and they are outraged about Jill Stein's comments. So who do we have? Jackson Hinkle says, you. Only a lying Zionist piece of shit would put Presidents Putin and Assad in the same sentence as Netanyahu. Wow. So Jill Stein, like the main thrust of her campaign now has become around Gaza, around the genocide. And everything she's saying is indicating this is what needs to stop now. We need to cut off the money. We need to cut off the weapons. We need to arrest Netanyahu. We got to uphold international law and humanitarian law. This is what she's saying. He says she's a lying Zionist piece of shit. And why does he say that? Because in Jackson Hinkle's mind, bro, Putin and Assad are not, they're not even war criminals, bro. They're the good guys.
They pay my bills,
I told you guys this the other day. Let me reiterate it because it's super important. When it comes to foreign policy, you have the neocons, right?
The K in Jackson's 401k is just Kremlin.
America and our allies good, and our enemies bad. And that's as deep as it goes, right? Everything else is window dressing. That's their actual belief. U.S. and our allies good, our official enemies bad. But you have this weird thing that happens with some on the far left, and I call it they're inverted neocons. What they do is it's the mirror image of what I just told you. So for them, it's U.S. enemies.
I don't know if Kyle knows the extent to which Jackson Hinkle is funded by foreign governments, but Kyle, if you check this clip out, not only does this guy make propaganda for them, not only is he an inverted neocon, as you've coined it, but he also gets like Russian guards to parade him around Moscow when he goes to the country.
Good, full stop. And U.S. allies and us, we are bad, full stop. You're just the mirror image of the neocon. You're an inverted neocon. Obviously, the correct position is, as a general rule, any government with a lot of power is going to be bad, and they're going to abuse their power, especially when it comes to foreign policy stuff. And you have to,
except for China. China never does anything wrong.
China eradicated poverty, Gavin, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
to evaluate everything objectively and empirically and say, okay, what actions have been done here that are good or bad? And of course, you could find actions by every government, whether they're U.S. linked or not. They have the same sort of human nature and corruption and power struggles and incentive structures, etc. And they deny that and act like all U.S. enemies are like heavenly and all U.S. and our allies are all bad.
It's kind of like defending the mafia because you hate the police. You know what I'm saying? Like, America is the police. Obviously, the police are terrible. They're corrupt. They're abusive. They kill innocent folks all the time. But that doesn't mean you have to defend the mafia. That doesn't mean that they're better.
You're just an inverted neocon. All right, George Galloway, you didn't have to do this. It is a mistake. If you don't run, they can't chase you. Yeah, but she's coming out to say something that's accurate. Like, yeah, okay, I equivocated, but the fact of the matter is Putin is a war criminal and so is Assad. That's correct. That's correct. They are war criminals. Imagine denying that. Look, let's be clear. You don't need to be in favor of war against those countries, right? You don't need to be in favor of intervention against those countries to call a spade and say they're war. I'm not in favor of war with Russia. I wasn't in favor of war with Syria.
And again, perfect proof of this, I've made this point before, but perfect proof of this is, guess what? All of us on the left, we accurately identify our own government officials as war criminals. That doesn't mean we want another country to start bombing us. Like, I don't think the correct response to the Iraq war was for like China to intervene and start nuking Virginia, like, to stop it from happening. Again, as bad as the Iraq war was, I actually don't think it would have been made better by another nuclear armed superpower stepping in to clean up and prevent us from doing that. Again, I know that sounds callous, and maybe if you're someone who was living in Iraq at the time, you would have hoped China would come in to prevent America, or Russia would come in to protect you from America. I get that, but just kind of objectively speaking, do I think another nuclear armed superpower getting involved to stop our war crimes, do I think that would have helped the situation? Probably not. It could have started World War III. In the same way, we can accurately identify Putin as a war criminal. We can accurately identify all of these foreign governments as bad when they do bad things. That doesn't mean we're advocating American involvement. That doesn't mean we're advocating regime change or war in any sense, even sanctions. I'm not suggesting that, but that doesn't mean we can't be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't even in favor of Obama's soft power arming the rebels because a lot of them turned out to be jihadists. You can have that position and also point out the fact that Assad is still a war criminal, that Putin is still a war criminal.
Syria like Kyle.
NATO didn't invade Russia, but Russia did invade Ukraine. Okay? Let's use our common sense here. Let's use our reason here. When it comes to Assad, you go look at the numbers, guys. There's a wide range in terms of what they say the results were of the Syrian civil war, but it's over 300,000 people who were killed. Over 300,000. Over 100,000 innocent civilians killed. And I'm using very conservative numbers here. And according to basically every serious estimate I've seen, most of the civilian deaths were done by Assad by the Assad regime. They're the ones who killed most civilians. It's totally true.
I think you need to have Aaron Mate and potentially Margaret Kimberly on your show, Kyle, before you can have an opinion on this, actually.
Yeah, Aaron was actually given an award by Bashar al-Assad's Syrian government because he exposed a lot of the Western media lies. And it's totally unrelated that he's now not getting published in any mainstream media platforms at all, and not even the lefty magazines anymore will accept his phone calls. Sorry.
That some of the rebels were extremists and they were jihadists and they were bad people. But it's also true that the Assad government killed massive numbers of civilians, including with torture in prisons.
Yep. We tortured
when did it become controversial to just state basic facts about the war? Learn the basic facts and then repeat them to people.
Because
yes,
then they might take their money away.
A lot of the rebels were jihadists and al-Nusra Front, and that's bad. And we shouldn't arm them, we shouldn't support them, etc. Agreed. But also, Assad is no angel, and he also massacred a lot of civilians in the process of the war, which means he's a war criminal. Right? I think that these people feel like if you acknowledge reality and say, yes, Assad's a war criminal, they feel like that then serves that the next step that logically follows is it is correct for us to do war against them, or at least fund people who are against them. It's just the rational and moral thing to do. But that doesn't follow. You know, there is a position of just non-interventionist. Let's mind our business. Let's stay out of it. That is a position. You can actually take that position while objectively describing what's happening on the ground. All right, more. Anya Parampol says, this is an awful statement. Awful. It's awful. Vladimir Putin, a war criminal, with the restraints that he has had with all the U.S., NATO encroaching upon the Russian... Oh, my God. With the restraints that he has had with the U.S., created disaster in Ukraine, pitting the Slavic brothers against each other. Okay, this guy genuinely believes poor Vladimir Putin is just waging a defensive war. Vladimir Putin gave a speech when he announced the invasion, and in the speech, he said, look, we're not in favor of the Soviet Union, but yeah, we think Ukraine is a fake state, and we would like to reestablish a Russian empire. That is a naked imperialist ambition. Yes, he also does the tap dance where he gives his long list of...
So many of the worst commentators, came out afterward to tell you why he didn't mean it when he said he wanted to restore the old Soviet glory. They were like, what? He's not talking about expansion, guys. He's not talking about expansion. Forget about Crimea. Forget about the Ukraine front. Forget about the fact that Russia's the largest country in the world by land mass. Okay?
Excuses and says, oh, bro, this is totally like defensive and stuff, and we feel threatened by NATO. Why is it that when the U.S. gives bullshit justifications for an offensive invasion they do, all these people can call it out? But when Russia gives a list of bullshit justifications and rationalizations for their war, all of a sudden they shut their brain off and they believe everything the Russian government says at face value. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. If you're willing to see through...
Kyle, it makes sense when you Kyle gives everybody the benefit of the doubt, right, Gavin? We've talked about this on our show. He's given everybody a lot of benefits of the doubt. And the last benefit of the doubt that he's giving these people is that they're not just paid to have these stupid dog shit takes. And even if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt that the money's not coming directly from foreign agents, there's a reason the gray zone won't put their funding numbers in public. Like one of the things that's such a dead giveaway is when they aren't transparent about who's funding them. And they'll give up this they'll give this bullshit reason, and they'll be like, well, they're friends of ours, which is what he said about Peter Allard, who got exposed as being a funder of the gray zone, who was a billionaire. So it was billionaire sponsored media, right? But they want to claim the independent label. Okay. And they have all these different weird justifications that they never apply to anyone else. Even if you want to be charitable and say it's just really rich folks who have a vested interest in, advancing the propaganda of these countries that are giving them money, at the very minimum for an outlet like the gray zone, that's true.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of the people in this thread, Jackson Hinkle, George Galloway, 100% on the payroll of RT or one of these foreign governments. And I'm not saying that as like a McCarthyite smear. Again, I'm just saying it is objective truth in the same way that I would bring it up if, some, reporter was on the payroll of any other
NPR, BBC
government. Yeah. Any other
Al
foreign
Jazeera.
Government, Al Jazeera. But yeah, I think that a lot of these people, their positions on the subject matter really is easily explained when you understand that. And again, this is something I've had an evolving perspective on as well. I used to be a lot more reticent to make those sort of allegations. But then we watched what happened to Jackson Hinkle, someone who literally came up with us at one point, had a YouTube channel at exactly the same size as ours, and then literally went down this rabbit hole of just becoming a foreign agent. Like, there's no other way to put it. He's literally just, prostituting his propaganda capabilities to the highest bidder, Russia, Syria, Venezuela, whatever. And again, it's not to say that all these countries are evil. I'm not saying that we should go to war with Venezuela or whatever, but it is relevant to note that, yeah, this guy's not being honest. He's not an objective reporter. He's not an honest actor. No, he's a state-funded propagandist. Again, Jackson Hinkle, that's the case for George Galloway, definitely the case for like Caleb Maupin. There's a couple others. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these people, they really just give the entire anti-imperialist left a really bad name, honestly. That's the worst part about this, because like, it's not like they aren't right about some things. You'll see, like Max Blumenthal, sometimes he'll have like the same position as someone like Abby Martin on a subject matter. And I think Abby Martin is great. I don't think she's compromised. I think she really is, I don't think she's like taking money from Russia or whatever. When she did work for RT, she literally condemned the invasion of Crimea on air. So I think it's really unfortunate, specifically because it gives a lot of people a bad name that swim in similar waters. Like I said, people like Abby Martin, people like Aranya Kalik or Katie Halper. Again, people that are genuinely anti-imperialist. Not that I agree with everyone in that crowd that I just mentioned on everything, but I'm just saying there's a spectrum here, and a lot of people in the anti-imperialist camp are 100% right about the issues. They're 100% right about America's war crimes, about how we're the largest purveyor of terrorism on the international stage. I'm not saying any of that is incorrect, but again, there's a lot of people that also swim in those waters, like the Caleb Maupins, like the George Galloways, like the Jackson Hinkles, and they refuse to actually condemn Russia when Russia does something wrong. Again, Abby Martin was 100% capable of and willing to condemn Russia's invasion of Crimea. She did it on air, RT America. You're never going to hear that from Jackson Hinkle. You're never going to hear that from George Galloway. Russia could nuke Ukraine and they would defend it.
Oh, 100%. And also, you can add the same for Jesse Ventura, who, when they canceled RT America, was like, oh, I wasn't going to do propaganda for them. Once they invaded Ukraine, I was going to call it out, whether or not they kept my show or not. And of course, he put his money where his mouth was there. But let's take a little more in from Kyle, if you're ready, Gavin.
Yep. The propaganda of the U.S. and our allies, why are you not willing to see through the propaganda of Assad or Putin? Of course you should be able to do that. But no, they take what they say at face value, but they're against everything we say at face value. This would be as stupid as saying, we were fighting Saddam Hussein because he was linked to 9/11 and he had weapons of mass destruction and he was going to attack us. It's like believing that lie about the U.S. going to war in Iraq. That's what it's, all the stuff this guy is repeating back. It's like he's believing that, but vis-a-vis Russia. Every bullshit. We are denazifying Ukraine. Imagine thinking Vladimir Putin is seriously trying to denazify Ukraine. Like, that's why he invaded Ukraine. It has a lot more to do with believing Ukraine is a fake state and also wanting to.
Well, that sounds like a United States imperialist talking point, Kyle. Did you know the United States promised never to infringe on Russia's border with NATO, and they already did with Norway?
Take their natural gas, right? It was oil or natural gas? I think natural gas. Has a lot more to do with that, right? But no, when gas. Russia says it's defensive, they go, oh, that is defensive. I agree. This person says, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Did you ever swing and miss on that one? Is this you taking the safe way out? Oh my God. They are still going to call you a Russian puppet, even if you repeat their lies about Putin, Jill. Lies about Putin. So it's a lie to say Putin's a war criminal? It's a lie to say Putin's a war criminal. Even though he has bombed civilian areas, he has killed women and children, innocent men. He had
no choice, Kyle. It's because of Joe Biden. Donald Trump would have never allowed that.
He did wage an offensive invasion against Ukraine. By the way, let's repeat this again for the people in the back. Did Ukraine invade Russia before Russia invaded Ukraine? Did Ukraine invade Russia? That's right, they didn't. Did NATO invade Russia? That's right, they didn't. They did build up on the border. That's true.
Ukraine's a made-up state, Kyle. They're really all just Russian brothers.
True. But do these people really believe, in a week, NATO was going to, fly fighter jets into Moscow and try to take it over? No serious person believes that. No serious person believes that. So in other words, Russia does the offensive and aggressive thing, and they all shut their minds off it. No, it is defensive because he says it's defensive, and I believe everything that comes from the Russian government at face value. No, use the same skepticism you use when the U.S. government says something. Use it for Russia. Use it for Syria. Use it for all governments that are doing some form of an aggressive action. All right, more. I think you lost a good part of your base on this one, unforced terror. Well, good for Jill then, because these people are the problem. This is one of many reasons why the left is not viewed as serious. This is one of many, many reasons why that's the case. Because you really are, at this point, these people are just inverted neocons. That's it. They're just inverted neocons.
And I think Kyle's 100% correct, especially when he says this is one of the reasons why the left struggles to be taken seriously. And again, specifically, this is in the context of that Green Party conversation. All of these freaks coming out to shame Jill Stein for saying something that like 99% of Americans would agree with, that Putin is a war criminal. You want her to back off of a position that is obvious to the vast majority of the people. You with like what, 3 weeks left before the election, you want her to change everyone in the country's mind about Vladimir Putin and explain to them why actually he's a based, G or whatever. You think that's a good issue to run the election on? Do you think she should really be wasting time repeating your stupid Aaron Mate talking points instead of talking about issues that the American people would actually agree with her on? That's what they want the leftist movement to turn into.
Yeah, it's an effort to make it a fringe political movement instead of a populist movement, instead of a winning movement, right? And yeah, it debases the entirety of our cause.